Hi, I'm Alexander Sim. I'm a cognitive behavioural therapist and I'm an expert witness at Private Therapy Clinic. So I can write reports on a range of different issues. For example, immigration difficulties and how that relates to the person's mental health, family or marital problems, criminal issues that people have experienced, or difficulties with mental health and how it's affected education. And then, the kinds of things that would usually be included might be a range of different difficulties, so trauma, domestic violence, substance misuse, any kind of anxiety or depression difficulties. Those are the kind of topics that I would usually cover. I've always enjoyed meeting new people and understanding their stories and their difficulties. I feel like I have a particular strength in condensing a story into something that's understandable and intelligible for a kind of maybe a non-psychology audience, and I find that particularly inspiring. I get quite a buzz when I've managed to, compile somebody's narrative into something that's kind of really nice, coherent, legible and understandable, to portray their case and their difficulties, and I love finishing a good report and being able to represent somebody in that respect. So I've written reports for a range of different issues. For example, I've written reports for immigration difficulties that people might be experiencing. So where, for example, we would be trying to understand the impact of deportation or immigration instability on their mental well-being, and connecting the two together and maybe looking at what would happen if they returned to their country of origin and what impact would that have on their psychological well-being. Other examples of reports that I've written include, for example, where people's education or their university progress has been impacted by their mental health or psychological difficulties, and then it's about condensing the difficulties that they're experiencing and how that's affected their grades, and kind of representing them in that circumstance to be able to negotiate with the university around how to progress in their degree. So to start with, what's really helpful is to have a clear set of instructions as to what direction the report is going to take, because that then helps to guide my questioning of the person I'm working with, and then I can look at what presenting difficulties they have, link that in with kind of past developmental problems that they might have experienced. Then you can move on to establishing what symptoms are affecting them at the moment and what diagnosis is that indicative of. And to support my clinical opinion of their diagnosis, I would usually use psychometric questionnaires, kind of validated research-based psychometric questionnaires, to add some objectivity to my assessment of the severity of their problem. And then in terms of concluding reports, what we then do is link the kinds of questions that are being asked to the difficulties that the person's experiencing with their mental health. So I would refer to research texts, maybe about countries and the different kind of health services that are available, or maybe what we know of the impact of trauma on certain issues that are being asked of me, linking the issues and linking that not just to the person's experience but also to what we know in research. In terms of the full report, they usually take 1 to 2 days, because we're writing quite an extensive document here which is to be used for quite important official purposes. So including assessment and the whole questioning and compiling, it's quite a detailed process, but at the end of it there's usually something very comprehensive, very kind of a real full picture of the person's difficulties, and linking that in with the specific questions that I've been asked to comment on. So in terms of a good expert witness, I suppose the first thing is to ensure that when you're meeting the client, you're creating a space where the client themselves can be open and honest about all the different difficulties that they've experienced, because that might be disclosing some very personal information. So, of course, as a psychotherapist, I'm able to provide a space which is completely non-judgmental, kind of calm and containing, so that person can be open and feel like they can talk to me about what's gone on for them. Where I would provide a kind of empathic environment, but also be able to direct my questions to the kinds of things that I know are going to be relevant for their case. And once I've created that environment and I've got the information that I need, I can then kind of write up the report of my assessment. And as I'm doing that, the other thing that's really pivotal is that it's an impartial report that I'm writing for the court or for the institution. So it's not to ignore the suffering and the difficulties of the client, but it's to present that in a way that's professional and accessible to maybe a non-psychology audience, so that actually that really represents the client's difficulties in the most informed way. So when you're an expert witness, what's quite important is to ensure that in understanding the person's difficulties, you're as impartial as possible while empathising with what they've experienced, to be able to communicate that to the establishment or the court that you're writing for. But what I have found to be a real what's given me a real sense of achievement is writing a report that's used by the court or used by the establishment in such a way that it helps them to make the decisions and really take into account the detail that I've written related to this person's mental health in helping them form their opinion as to how this issue should be dealt with. I've had a lot of positive feedback that because my reports are very kind of coherent and accessible to a range of audiences, they really are useful for people. And as a result, a lot of the solicitors or the kind of clients that I've individually worked for have found them really beneficial. And that for me gives me a real sense of achievement and a sense of pride in what I do. Well, I've had a lot of kind of feedback that said the report itself has been great. Solicitors have really found it helpful. I think it informs their understanding of mental health actually. And my favourite bit of feedback was from a judge who said that the report that I'd written actually helped him make the decision with respect to the case. And that's exactly what I'm there for. I'm helping the legal process to be kind of conducted in the most kind of well-informed way.